Show.
Well, you're probably aware of the tragic crash that took place at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., involving that American Airlines regional jet from Wichita, Kansas, and the Army Huey helicopter. Here's some things you probably need to think about. This was a situation where a lot of things happened all at once, and it's the worst possible connection of things that could happen. The regional airliner, the American Airlines regional jet, was told to change runway. While they were coming down the approach to runway 01, they were told to switch over to runway 33 because another airplane was just taking off from 01, and you can't really have two airplanes flying onto the same runway. So they said, okay, switch over to runway 33, make your approach to that. That meant that airplane had to make a banking turn. Now, the same time at the Army field, a helicopter was getting ready to take off, and the controllers on the ground speaking on the UHF frequency, because remember, airlines use VHF, military uses UHF, two different frequencies. They're not hearing each other. So the controller talking to the helicopter said, hey, do you see that aircraft out there? Not knowing what direction that helicopter is facing, because a helicopter could turn 360 degrees. You have no idea which way he's pointing. When they said, do you see that aircraft taking off out there? And the pilot of the helicopter said, yeah, we see it. He said, well, stay behind that one. Trouble is, he didn't see the other airplane that was turning in the banking turn because he was turning away from it, not seeing the helicopter. So you're seeing a plane taking off, but you're not seeing the one that's getting ready to land. That's a coincidence that rarely happens, but this time it did. Helicopter took off, was climbing up, supposed to be at 200 feet maximum, the AGL. Actually went up to about 350 feet and hit the airliner. The airliner did not hit the chopper. The chopper hit the airliner. Two airplanes in the same place at the same time. Ain't gonna work, folks. Sorry. Anyway, that's what apparently has happened. Now, it's going to take a while to get this all figured out to see who, what, where, when, why, and how. Helicopters don't have black boxes, folks. At least military helicopters don't. Just so you understand that. Yes, the airliner may have it, but that's not necessarily going to help him because the airliner didn't know what was going on. He was hit by the helicopter. So, yes, everybody was killed. There were 64 on the airline, and I believe three in the helicopter. And by the way, the chopper pilots were highly experienced. The trouble is, the person talking to them on the ground, air traffic control, didn't know which way that helicopter was pointing when he said, look out for that particular plane. Circumstances, weird, but it does happen. And in this case, it amounted in a tragedy. Just something to fill you in, so that's what I know right now. More will come out soon, but right now, that's what I know. One of the big things you probably heard from this administration involves getting rid of illegal aliens, especially those who have criminal records, and I mean serious criminal records. You have to understand that when these various countries decided to send people to the United States, they in particular emptied out their prison, their mental institutions, and what have you, and sent the worst of the worst to the United States, figuring, hey, we don't want them, we'll send them up to America and let them deal with them. Well, that's been a big problem. You probably heard that Colombia, when Trump tried to send some folks back to Colombia, the president of Colombia said, nah, we ain't taking them. Well, then sanctions were threatened and he changed his tune and now is going to accept them. But there is one country out there that Venezuela does not want their people back, especially their criminals back, and their president has made no bones about it. And you can try to do every sanction you want on him. He's going to go, what are you going to do to me? You've done everything else you can. I'm still here. All right, so what are you going to do with all those people from Venezuela that are criminals and massive criminals? You know, you're talking about some of the biggest gangs ever, the Tren de Aragua. That's a bad group, folks. Those people are bad. You got MS-13. You've got all kinds of various gangs that they want to get off the streets. Well, Trump just announced he got a plan. An executive order was just issued to say, you know what we're going to do with those people? The bad people we pick up, and I mean the really worst of the worst. we're going to send to Guantanamo. That's right, folks. The bad people that the other countries don't want back, fine. We're going to send them to Guantanamo. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo. I wasn't aware of that, but apparently we do. So what we can do is take these prisoners, put them on an airplane, take them down to Guantanamo and treat them, well, just like who they are. Criminals. Now, they're not terrorists like we had over the Middle East, but those people are dwindling at Guantanamo. Now, if we want to put 30,000 people into prisons in Guantanamo because the other countries do not want them back and will not take them back, fine. We'll send them to Guantanamo. Now, please be aware, we have been capturing some of the worst of the worst. I mean, these are absolute massive criminals. About 1,000 a day. That's right. We're setting folks loose and say, pick them up. And they're getting about 1,000 a day. And they're going around all different cities or tagging different cities. One of the worst is New York City. Then you got Chicago. And now it just announced the mayor of Minneapolis says we're not going to support the government in any way, shape, or form. We're going to tell our police and authorities, do not help the U.S. government get rid of bad people. Well, he's about to find out what it's going to be like. But now Trump has announced what he's going to do. He's going to send 30,000 criminals down to Guantanamo, put them in incarceration there, and let's go from there and see what happens next. So if you wonder what's going on, are we cleaning out the bad people out of this country? Apparently we are. And where are we going to send them? Guantanamo. That's where we sent the terrorists. Let's see how that works out, and let's see what the other countries have to say now about not wanting their people back into their country. Something to watch out for. Now you know what's going on. Guantanamo is now the next destination for criminals in the United States. When Donald Trump went into office, he said, we're going to have transparency. You're going to learn things that you didn't know. He said he's going to release the information on the assassination of JFK, which has been hidden since the 1960s. Also, his brother, Bobby Kennedy's assassination, and maybe Martin Luther King and more. Well, here's one that's already being released. John Ratcliffe, who was approved as the head of the CIA, former Texas congressman, has now come out and said, oh, by the way, you know that COVID problem that we had, the COVID virus? Well, according to the CIA and the documents they have, it came from a Wuhan lab. That's right. CIA released information, said that outbreak, that poisoning, came from the Wuhan lab in China. Now, if you recall, didn't Dr. Fauci say, no, it didn't come from that lab. There's no way. It came from the environment. It came from animals in the marketplace. Things mixed. He had about 7 different stories, by the way, of where that virus came from, but none of them had anything to do with the Wuhan lab that, frankly, taxpayer money was going into. That's right. So, here you go. John Ratcliffe, the new head of the CIA, said, I'm going to release stuff. And he has gone out and released that says the connection between the Wuhan lab and the COVID virus is real. Now, that's what the CIA says. Beyond that, well, other people are going to talk, and they can talk all they want. But all I can tell you right now is when a CIA director, and they know stuff that you and I do not know, probably will never know, he says we're going to be transparent, we're going to tell you exactly what's going on. And there it is, folks. New head of the CIA says transparency, and we're telling you exactly what happened. And now we know the COVID virus was leaked from the Wuhan lab. Exactly how? Well, we're not sure of that yet. But it was not through the marketplace. It was not through whatever thing in nature that happened. It was, well, manufactured. You take 2 harmless things, put them together, you make something deadly. And apparently that's what happened, and somehow it got out and affected the world. Now you understand what's going on. When we find out about the Kennedy assassination, the Bobby Kennedy assassination, and the Martin Luther King assassinations, documents that have been hidden for years, well, let's see what happens. Let's see if Donald Trump is continuing with his word to say, I'm releasing everything. And maybe finally the Americans will know exactly what happened so many years ago that we have never heard of since. Now, maybe government will be transparent and we'll finally figure out what's going on. The problem is, some of it you may not end up liking. And you may not end up liking it a whole lot. Just saying. Well, last November was a turning point in the United States history because Donald Trump was elected president. Now, here's what he's done since he became president, especially involving the United States military, which is the forefront of our country. That is the tip of the spear, folks. Those are the people willing to sign the check that says, we'll give up our lives to save this country. Donald Trump has done the following. Joe Biden had a policy that says transgender individuals must be allowed in the military. And I believe there was somewhere around 1,500 in there. Well, Donald Trump said, no, they're out. You don't need diversive situations in the United States military. You do not social engineer the military. As a result, the United States Air Force has dropped their DEI policy. Once again, social engineering in the military. And now that Pete Hegseth has become the Secretary of Defense, he has said to the entire military, DEI is out, O-U-T. And anybody that supports it, you're going to be out as well. Now, is this going to lead to people suing, saying, hey, I have a right to be here? Anything could possible. Anybody can sue anybody if they want to. But you have to remember that don't social engineer the United States military. That's the last place you want to go. And obviously, President Trump has said that's the last thing he's going to allow. Now, what else has he done recently? Well, it turns out the United States taxpayer, that's you and me, have been paying for security people around Dr. Anthony Fauci. That's right, he's got his own Secret Service security team that keeps him, safe. I didn't know he needed a security team, but apparently he was using one paid for by the United States taxpayer. Well, his security team is gone. It's no longer there. It's been taken away. Now, Dr. Fauci's a very wealthy individual. If he wants to have a security team, well, he could pay for it out of his own pocket. At least that's the way that it's done. Celebrities don't ask for the Secret Service, do they? Well, maybe they do, but they don't get it. So why should Dr. Fauci get his own taxpayer-paid security team? He shouldn't. Another person who's lost his security team is John Bolton. If you remember, John Bolton wrote an extremely nasty book about Donald Trump, and after he was fired from the Trump administration, because Trump said he was a war hawk. And, well, if he is, take and read the book. You'll find out for yourself. But his security team has also been taken off his case, if you will. So he no longer has a security team, and he's not happy about it, because the Iranians apparently want to kill him. Well then, here's another plan. You've got a lot of money, hire your own security team. Now those are some of the things that Donald Trump has done since he's gotten into office. You may disagree with him, but are we saving taxpayers' money? Yes. Are we making sure that our military is the best of the best and not socially engineered? I would like to hope so. I'm just putting this point out is that you got to be careful, folks, because if you destroy the people that are here to guard this country and turn the morale into nothing, you're not going to have a fighting force. And if you don't have a fighting force, you're going to lose if you get in a war. I'm not a big fan of Representative Alexandria Acosta-Cortez, or AOC as she's referred to, in Congress, but apparently she has slipped into something that maybe she's going to regret she said. Because recently she said, do you think the American people are stupid, realizing that Democrats, and by the way probably Republicans as well, are making boatloads of money with insider trading? Really? AOC announced that Democrats are doing insider trading. Well, folks, it ain't just Democrats. Please understand that. You see, in Congress, there's a way that you can bribe, and I use the term very, very loosely, bribe your representative or senator by giving him a little tip on something. Like, gee, Senator, something really happened, a breakthrough was done at company XYZ, and that's going to hit the word tomorrow, and you could probably get on that right now before the stock goes up. What lobbyists are doing is that rather than slipping money to these congressmen and senators, they slip them a little tax tip, a little insider stuff that you and I don't get. Now, I'll tell you what will happen. If you and I go out there and do some insider trading, you learn something at your company or another company, and you get the inside scoop on something that's going to happen, you know what you could do? Well, you could say, well, I'm going to cash that in and make money. Well, guess what? You're probably going to be charged, and you're probably going to end up going to jail. Now, in Congress, insider trading is done, and AOC admits it. She said, do you think people are stupid and don't see what's going on? Do you wonder how members of Congress go into Congress as paupers and come out multimillionaires? It's because they're being bribed. They're being bought. They're being given tips. Hey, Congressman, so-and-so stock is going to be going up drastically tomorrow. We can get it for you now. This is what happens. This is the way politics works, folks. It's not pretty. It's ugly. Now, should they take Congress and say nobody in Congress can do insider trading? Yeah, you could do that. But you're going to tell their wives not to do it? You're going to tell their girlfriends or boyfriends not to do it? You see, the problem is it gets dirty in Washington. It's a swamp. It's a sewer. And even the AOC is now admitting that's exactly what's going on because congressmen and senators are essentially taking bribes in the forms of insider trading. And now even she admits it. Will it change in Congress? I personally doubt it. But now you know what happens when someone goes to Washington. Recently, I happened to run across an article from the News Channel 15 dealing with the Capital Improvement Board. Now, many of you don't really know who that is. Basically, these are folks who get a certain amount of money that comes in because there's taxation issues. They get money into a pot of money they can spend. And they decide what they're going to do with that money to advance the city of Fort Wayne, our image, and our infrastructure even. So, they talk about things involving money. Well, recently they had a meeting and they were talking about funding one of the hotels and how they get all their money taken care of and what they want to do to expand things out. But there was a point in the article that caught my attention. And the reason it caught my attention is because they're dealing with something that originally came up months ago. And it had to do with that downtown block right next to where the convention visitors, the big downtown convention center is. There's a block over there that's got the Taco Bell and the fast food restaurants, all right? The big one, though, was the Taco Bell in that one block. And that Taco Bell, they had a big-time lease for the next 20 years. And the city wants to get that, not the city, but the Capital Improvement Board wants to get that block in the worst way. They got a plan for something downtown. I'm pontificating on what I think the plan might be, but I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. Well, they're offering the folks who own the Taco Bell to say, hey, if you move across the street, give you a nice corner lot over there by Parkview Field, nice place there, you can operate just catty corner where you are. Take the deal. Well, ultimately, the folks who own the Taco Bell took the deal, and they're going to be moving across the street to a new catty corner location. But the story is, what are they going to do with that property once the Taco Bell's gone and the other restaurants that are in that block? What are they going to do with that? Long time ago, I surmised that maybe, just maybe, that would be converted into what is known as a natatorium. And you're going, what's a natatorium? Well, some don't know. It's a big giant place for a swimming pool. Do you remember back last year when they had the Olympic trials down in Indianapolis? They had this big Olympic pool things they set up, huge, right there on the floor of the Lucas Oil Stadium. That wasn't a permanent thing, it was a temporary thing. Turns out an organization ended up buying that swimming pool and brought it up to Fort Wayne, and it's been in storage. Now the story has been, well, putting in a 50-meter pool in Fort Wayne, boy, that would be Destination City stuff. People would want to come here for swimming meets and swimming events because there aren't many 50-meter pools that exist in the area. So I surmise that, well, maybe downtown would be a place to put that swimming pool in. And then discussions came along about, well, putting it over there with Carroll High School, working with them because they've got a very fine high school. And maybe they would locate a swimming pool over there on the northwest side of Fort Wayne, somewhere maybe along Lima Road, or, ideas were tossed out. But now it looks like maybe, just maybe, the Capital Improvement Board wants to get that downtown property. Could they take the Grand Wayne Center and expand it, even make it bigger? Sure they could. Sure they could. But are they looking at something else, maybe different? Maybe something else like a natatorium swimming pool to attract people to downtown Fort Wayne for big, giant swimming meets? I'm just posting this as a maybe. Not really sure, but I'm just feeding the animal a little bit just to get folks thinking about this. Could be interesting if they do. Let's wait and see what the Capital Improvement Board does, because something big could be coming to downtown very soon. Alrighty. Trump administration killed the security clearances of 50 plus intelligence people, and we're going to get into that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, one of the biggest things you've heard in recent weeks has to do with the stripping of the security clearances of over 50 intelligence individuals here in the United States. Now, you're saying, well, why did they do that? Well, back years ago, in 2020, the Biden administration suddenly, just before the election, produced a document signed by 50 intelligence individuals saying Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. That's what they said. Here's the letter. Oh, and they had it on TV. That was part of the campaign, part of the promotion to get Joe Biden elected. Trump is wrong. Everything here, we're officials. We're intelligence people. We're signing this Joe Biden letter. Well, turns out that once investigated and once totally investigated, they were 100% wrong. Documents indicated it. It's been verified. The entire thing was, well, that document was a flat-out lie. Now, did any of those 50 people apologize? Nope. Here's what they're saying. Their representatives and attorneys are saying, well, you know how it is in Washington. It's politics. This is what we do. You got to do what you got to do. And their security clearances were revoked. Well, guess what? You lied. You flat out lied on a document because you felt you had to sign it because, well, somebody from your tribe was telling you that's what you had to do. And you did it. Well, now you're paying the price. Most of Washington, D.C., so you understand this. If you work in Washington, D.C., chances are you're involved with classified. Virtually everything in Washington, D.C. is classified one way, shape, or form. Getting a security clearance is, well, can be tedious, can be time-consuming, you got to put a lot of work in and a lot of data and stuff you got to provide and go through a lot of background checks. Trust me, I know, because I had a top-secret security clearance and I know what I had to go through to get it. Now, once you lose it, getting it back is darn near impossible. It's extremely difficult. And these Washington insiders liked having that security clearance because, that lets them still be in part of what's going on in Washington. Still gets them into the right cocktail parties, the right events, the right symposiums, because they have a security clearance. Well, these 50 gentlemen lied. Now, if they want to take it to court and sue over this, that's their prerogative. They have every right to. John Bolton was one of the guys who had his security detail squashed. He no longer has Secret Service guarding him. Of course, he was also one of the people who had his security clearance revoked because a book he put out that revealed some stuff that, pretty shaky stuff. So, the fact that John Bolton no longer has Secret Service detail, he's a wealthy man. If he wants security, he can pay for it himself. Celebrities in Hollywood, they have their own security services. They have to pay for themselves. Mr. Bolton wants security services. He can hire companies to do his security on his dime. not the taxpayer's dime. Just saying. So you understand what's going on, folks. House cleaning is never easy. It's never simple, and it definitely is never clean. But sometime you got to stand up and say, enough is enough. And it's time to get the house back in order and clean things up, because it's gotten pretty dirty in that swamp. And now somebody is finally starting to drain it and clean it out. Just saying. That's all I got for now. Well, maybe you've heard of Allen Media, and maybe you haven't. Allen Media is owned by a gentleman by the name of Byron Allen. He used to be a comic, from what I understand. And he took his money and invested it pretty well and ended up buying a whole bunch of radio and TV stations around the United States. And when he did that, he decided, I got to figure out a way to make more money. But was it Byron Allen or was it his chief financial officer? I'm guessing it was his CFO who said, we got to find a way to make more money, and I have a plan. Because what Byron Allen did, he also bought something called the Weather Channel. You must be pretty familiar with that. Everybody is. Weather Channel's a national channel, and they carry weather all around the United States. Well, Mr. Allen bought the Weather Channel, and his CFO says, what if we have the Weather Channel do all the weather forecasts for all the stations that you own in your chain? And that way we could get rid of all the meteorologists at those stations around the United States, fire them, and make a whole lot more revenue. That was from the CFO. One of the stations that was affected was a station in Terre Haute. That's right, WTHI in Terre Haute. They laid off a couple more people on their staff that are, long-time meteorologists, quite beloved by the community, because what Mr. Allen and his people didn't figure out, people love their meteorologists. They absolutely do. Yes, there's the news. Yes, there's the sports. But meteorologists, those are the people that the viewers idolize. They love to see when they're out there, these guys go out, or gals go out and see the folks out there, and that America trusts their meteorologists. Because you see, the meteorologists are talking about the bad weather, whether it's hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever storms they are, blizzards, you name it. When radio, for the longest time on radio, WOWO had a weather forecaster named Earl Finkel. That's right, Earl Finkel everybody talked about Earl Finkel, and he was the weatherman. What people didn't realize is Earl Finkel was not here in Fort Wayne. He was actually in Chicago, Illinois. But everybody believed he was, and nobody at WOWO said anything different. So there was a beloved weather forecaster. And I mentioned some of the other weathercasters we have had here in the city of Fort Wayne. Well, as it turns out, none of our stations are owned by the Allen Media Group, so I guess we're pretty well clear. But now the Allen Media folks have discovered they have opened up a hornet's nest. And some people are very, very upset about meteorologists who people love being thrown away, cast away because they've got a better plan to do it and make the station more money. It's not also always about money, folks. It's about ratings. It's about what people feel because they have an attachment to the people who they like. Newsmen, anchors come and go all the time on stations, but more often than not, weather people stand in the community and make it a career. It's what they do. It's the way things work in weather. Yes, the other folks want to go from station to station, but as a rule, meteorologists become part of the family, part of your home. And in this case, Allen Media discovered they have unearthed a very bad worm, and the worm is starting to bite back in ways that they did not possibly imagine. Will they continue with their plan? Right now, nobody knows. But I'll tell you right now, in many cities, folks are upset. They're upset with the media company looking to just make more money by firing their weathercaster. And that is never really a good plan. Well, during the battle to determine if Pete Hegseth was going to be named the Secretary of Defense, a fellow by the name of Joe Scarborough, who you may have seen on a MSNBC morning show, Morning with Joe, or whatever they call it, he was out there saying the United States military is the strongest military in the world. It's not weak. It's not woke. And I'm going, What is he talking about? I do not believe that Joe Scarborough has any military experience whatsoever, and I don't know who he's talking to, but I can tell you what, as one who is now retired from the United States military after over 20 years of service, I can tell you what's happened in the United States military recently. Recently, they have put woke into the United States military. The worst possible thing you can do. You do not, and I repeat, you do not socially engineer the United States military. But yes, they did. Putting that woke mentality in there. And then, here's another big thing. Remember during the COVID situation? Well, if you didn't take the COVID shot in the military, you were tossed out. You heard me right. You were taught, didn't matter what your grade was, what your rank was. You don't take the shot, you're tossed out. Well, now Donald Trump said, hey, I'm putting those people back in at the rank they were and getting them back pay. Because, well, those soldiers have said, look, I'm not taking an experimental vaccine. And now they're going to be going back in the military if they so choose. But let me tell you this. The military, Mr. Scarborough, is having a very, very difficult time recruiting new people. Every branch of the United States military, and I believe that's virtually every branch, has fallen massively short of their recruiting needs. Why? Simple. People are saying, I don't want to go into that situation where they got woke stuff going on. That's the reason they don't want to go in. And now the pig Hexef has now been nominated or been named as the Secretary of Defense. He's going to go in there and change the entire mentality. Because the military are warriors. Plain and simple, no ifs, ands, or buts, they're warriors. Their job is to kill people and break stuff. Sorry, that's what it is. Well, now they're saying, well, Pete doesn't have any experience. We've had all kinds of people, Secretary of States, they've had experience. Well, let me tell you what they didn't tell you. I found one in particular. His name was, how about this one? Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, yes, he was Secretary of Defense not once but twice and has zero military experience. As a matter of fact, in the 1960s, Dick Cheney would be classified as a draft dodger. He got 5 different deferments and finally found a way to skip out of the United States military. When asked, why didn't you serve? He said, I had other priorities. Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense, said when it came to the military, he had other priorities. So don't give me this nonsense about the military being great. The military's having a tough time right now. And that's just recruiting. This whole woke thing is messing up everything. And putting individuals, trans individuals into the military, authorizing that's got to stop and they've got to be out. You got to have a fighting force, and that's all they do and that's all they think about. If you don't have that, you're going to get your butts kicked in a war. I don't care who you are. Just saying what's going on, folks. You may not like hearing it, but it is what it is. And that's my take on that. Well, on this past Tuesday, the Trump administration announced something really big. And that big thing was they told the employees of the federal government, of which there are 3 million. Now keep that in mind, there's 3 million federal employees. Said, look, we're getting a little overbloated here, and if you want to quit, you want to get out, we'll give you 7 months of money, 7 months of benefits, but you got to like February 6th to decide. Here's something you probably don't know, America. In Washington, D.C., roughly only about 6% of federal employees actually go into work. You're going, what? 6%? Yeah. Since COVID, now that was like 5 years ago, well, since COVID happened, only about 6% of government employees actually show up at their workplace. We got buildings in Washington, D.C. that are empty you're paying for. And that's basically become a big problem. Because those people are saying, hey, I like working at home. I don't really they don't know what I'm doing. I can take care of stuff. I can run to the grocery store, whatever. I don't have to pay to go into Washington, D.C. I like what I'm doing. Well, Trump administration says that is ending. We're going to start telling you people, get your butts back into work. And if you don't show up into work, then you are going to be eliminated, terminated, fired. That's what's going to happen. So now you understand what Trump is saying. Hey, we got 3 million employees, many of whom are sitting there wasting time, energy, and your money. Now, they say, well, we could lose some great people in here, some great people there. Look, the great people are doing the work because they like doing what they do. Are they going to leave? Probably not. But they're going to look around and say, we got a bunch of freeloaders in our department that are doing nothing, and it's one person, two persons, three persons doing all the work. That's the problem in government. Once you get into government, you figure, I can't be fired. I can't be laid off. I got a job for life. Everything's going to be hunky-dory for me. I can sit around and do nothing because there's nothing they can do to me. If they try to get rid of me, they just have to put me in another place. Well, that's about to end, folks. Because now, Trump administration, President Trump said, enough's enough, America. We're going to get lean, mean, and be a fighting machine. Get rid of the chaff. Get rid of the fat. Get it down to people who actually do a job and are actually working for you. Because right now, many of them are not. Like I said, only 6% of people in Washington, D.C. are actually coming into work. Everybody else is working from home. Is that what you want? Well, if it is, you can complain about it. But right now, many Americans say, hey, I ain't getting the same thing as these federal people are. They ought to be doing the same thing I'm doing. And you know what? They're probably right. So now you know what's going on. Now you understand. People are said, hey, you want to quit? Fine. We'll give you 7 months of pay, 7 months of welfare. But beyond that, if you don't come into work, you're fired. You know what? That works for me. And I'm an average American citizen just like you. One of the things that Donald Trump did as the new president of the United States was take a real serious look at citizenship to America. Now, 150 years ago, our Congress and the 14th Amendment came into being. The 14th Amendment was originally enacted back in the Civil War days to ensure that slaves in America were considered to be citizens. And that was the reason the 14th Amendment was in fact created. Now, today, what's happened with the 14th Amendment is, well, a game's being played, and that game's been played for a number of years. I've seen it myself when I was younger, growing up in West Texas. We used to see women coming in from Mexico into the United States, very pregnant, getting ready to deliver, exclusively go to American hospitals. There they deliver the child, and that child was automatically a citizen of the United States under the 14th Amendment. Now, that young child was called an anchor baby. And that was used to bring the rest of the family into the United States under the guise, well, the child's an American citizen, so he or she can bring in whomever they want. It also continued out in California. A number of Chinese women were being brought into the United States, and they too were pregnant and were ready to have their kids. And sure enough, they had their kids in American hospitals, and their children also became anchor babies, American citizens. Well, this has been much discussed for the longest period of time, and now that Donald Trump is back in being president, he said this needs to be resolved once and for all. When people come in just to say I'm going to have the kid in the United States, American citizen, there's a lot of concern about that, because if you read the amendment, I want you to take a look at this 14th Amendment. This is Article 1 of the 14th Amendment that talks about the jurisdiction thereof. Now, that's a very, very important phrase in what that means. And that is probably going to have to be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, how's it going to get there? Well, it turns out that Donald Trump did an executive order saying, hey, you can't being born in the United States not necessarily makes you a citizen. So he put that executive order in, and then a district court judge in the state of Washington, his name is John Cronauer, he said that's unconstitutional and put a hold on it. Well, now it's in the court system. And now it can work its way up to the United States Supreme Court. And I believe the next big case the Supreme Court is going to be handling, a big case, will have to do with citizenship in the United States. Whether being born in the United States, even though you're not from the United States, your parents just came over to have the kid in America, to classify you as an anchor baby, is going to be considered a legitimate means to becoming a citizen. And there it is, folks. 14th Amendment, that jurisdiction issue, that, my friends, is going to become the big issue for the upcoming Supreme Court case. Just letting you know what's happening. A new thing that's happening under Donald Trump, 47th President of the United States. Now he's being open and saying, I'm going to put everything on the table. And maybe it's about time somebody did. Well, if you're a football fan, here's something you may know or maybe not know. Seems that last year the NFL was considering outlawing the Philadelphia Eagles a running play called the Tush Push. That's where the linemen get all bunched together and they allow the quarterback to just push his way over the goal line, and that's what they call the Tush Push. Well, they thought about outlawing it, but didn't. But maybe after what happened at the NFL playoff game this past Sunday, may make them think about, maybe we ought to do that. Now, if you're watching the TV, you saw what happened. The Eagles were down very close to the Commanders' goal line, lined up in a formation designed for, well, the Tush Push. And the linebacker for the Washington Commanders, I believe his name is Frank Louvu, and I could be wrong pronouncing that, but that's close enough. Just before the snap, he jumped over the center of the line, trying to stop the momentum going on for the Tush Push. Well, obviously he was early. Flag was called. They moved the ball up again, and actually he did it a couple of times. Well, the referee, his name was Sean Hockley. I don't know, but I think he may be related to that great referee Ed Hockley of days gone by. But anyway, Sean Hockley went on there in the PA system and said, "Hey, here's the deal. You guys keep doing this, and we're going to give Philadelphia a touchdown." And you're going, what? They're going to give Philadelphia a touchdown without making a touchdown? Turns out, according to the rules, they can do that. I didn't know that. If you look under the touchdown rules, rule number 5 of the touchdown rules says the ref can award a touchdown after the other team has been palpably denied the ability to make it. So he went 2 times and saying to the Commodores, you keep doing this again, I'm going to invoke the touchdown rule, rule number 5, article number 5 of the touchdown rule, and I'm going to give Philadelphia a touchdown whether you like it or not. Now, that's the rule. I wasn't aware of the rule, but if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you're probably going, yay. Now, question is, should the NFL step in and tell the Eagles, hey, no more tush push, can't do that? Well, I'm not sure if they could get away with that. I mean, Goodell could try that, that's fine. Not sure that's going to be a winning hand. But now you know why the referee said I could award Philadelphia a touchdown without scoring a touchdown. Turns out in the rule, article number 5, and the touchdown rule says, if you deny a team with a probability, something unfair you're doing, like leaping over the line to stop the tush push, the other team can be awarded a touchdown without getting the touchdown. Something you probably didn't know, but now you do. The year was 1978. The day was January the 26th. It was a Wednesday. And on that date, I decided, well, I might go out and enjoy myself on a Wednesday night, go to one of our favorite hot spots at that time. It was up on North Wells Street over by Evans Toyota. It's the Bombay Eagle. It was a disco and a restaurant. If I remember correctly, it was owned by Helen Keenan Centliver. So I decided to go to the disco, enjoy myself. But I'd heard earlier Earl Finkel say, hey, we could be getting some snow on Wednesday night. Well, most people didn't think that much about it because we wanted to go out and party. We did. About 10 o'clock that night, I decided to look out the front door of the disco and restaurant. Boy, it was coming down. Said, hey, I'm going to get out of here. Got in my car and, well, drive back to my apartment in Canterbury Green. Now, that's not that long a distance from Wells Street to head over to Canterbury. Took over an hour to get home. Got under my carport. I thought, man, that's not easy, and it's still coming down. So I said, okay, fine. So I decided to go to bed about 11:30, and I ended up waking up about 2 o'clock in the morning to a howling sound. Grabbed my trusty flashlight, looked out my window. All I saw was a field of white. That's all I saw. Couldn't see anything. Decided to go over and take a look at the patio door of my apartment and the back patio door, see if I could see out that. Couldn't see out that either, because both of my windows were facing west. And whatever was coming in from the west, and it was howling. Turns out it howled for 33 hours. What started out on a Wednesday night went up until 2 a.m. Friday morning. 2 a.m. Friday morning, I suddenly started hearing voices outside the apartment in Canterbury. Heard sounds because, well, voices would go off of snow, bounce off of it. People were outside their apartments walking around as best they could because the blizzard had ended. That's right. From Wednesday night until early Friday morning, it was howling and raging. That was probably the biggest storm I have ever seen in my entire life, and I've never seen one like it since. Well, that was the problem. So suddenly everybody's marooned. Cars are stuck everywhere. The city of Fort Wayne, northeastern Indiana, southwestern Michigan, northwest Ohio, we'd all been shut down. I mean, everybody was shut down. There was nothing there. And I remember, there's a Rogers called in the marketplace of Canterbury, and people would trudge over there. And I remember getting into the Rogers to buy some food, and the line of people was all the way to the back of the Rogers store. And people had empty packages in their grocery carts because they were standing there eating. That's how it was, folks. If you got food, you were lucky. If you lived in an apartment complex, well, it depends on who else was living in the apartment complex near you. What other apartments were there? So some people made it pretty good. Others, well, maybe not so much. But I can tell you this. It was a storm that I will never forget. And one of the things I will always remember in that storm, there was a big mound of snow in the Northcrest parking lot. Well, that big mound of snow did not finish melting, until June of 1979. It took, 5-6 months for the snow to melt? That's what it was like back in 1978, because I, as well as a whole lot of other folks, were survivors of the blizzard of 1978. And we're still here to talk about it, and we still have the memories. It was something to behold.